So first I started by opening the box, of course. Everything was packed very nicely. There's some manuals. There she is, the Landroid L. L standing for large. So I got the boundary wire, power cord, that's a part of the housing, screws to secure the housing into the ground, power supply box connects to the power cord. Those are pegs to secure the boundary wire, more pegs. I got some extra boundary wire because I got the Acre Landroid because I have a pretty big backyard. There's the battery. Okay, as you can see, my backyard is pretty large. It's about a little bit less than half an acre. Just wanted to show more views of the terrain and type of grass that I have. I don't have the prettiest grass. Whatever grows back there grows. Alright, so first I started by clearing a spot for the Landroid housing. Try to make it as flat as possible. I laid down some landscaping fabric so no weeds would grow through. Okay, and then using the given screws, I just push them into the ground. My ground is pretty soft. It's mainly sand, so I didn't have to use a lot of force. Those screws in the back I had a little issue with, but I just wanted to do an initial run of the Landroid to check if it worked, so I left them. Okay, so now I'm opening the boundary wire. The wire needs to be spliced. Unfortunately, I didn't have a splicer, so I just used scissors. Just carefully cutting around the plastic encasing of the wire and then taking pliers and pulling off the plastic piece that I cut around. The next thing to do is to insert the exposed wire into the terminal. You can connect to power or ground, it doesn't really matter. Here I'm connecting to power. The terminal is like a little clip that you push up and then let go of, and then it clamps down on the wire. On the housing, there's little slots for the wire to go into, so I'm just inserting it there. Okay, the next step is to take the pegs and secure the boundary wire to the ground. It was recommended every 32 inches, I think, to put a peg. the wire should be as flat on the ground as possible. And this is the wire that basically tells the Landroid where to go. You create like a section for the Landroid to mow in, and it's not supposed to pass the boundary wire. So I'm just putting the boundary wire all around my yard and then securing it with pegs. Finally, I got back to the Landroid housing and I had to splice the wire again in order to insert it into the terminal and connect it to ground. Okay, now everything's connected, so now we can plug it in. Just close that. Insert the battery into the Landroid. Just to show, those are the blades that it comes with. Very tiny, in my opinion. Probably should not touch the blades like that, but just to show that they swivel and the wheels swivel. But yeah, those are the blades. I got the 9-inch diameter. Okay, so put the Landroid on the housing and we know it's charging because that green light is flashing. Those metal clips on the housing are pushed by the red clips on the Landroid to create good contact. Once it's charged, the Landroid will take off. Here it's going through my yard over the ugly patches of grass that I have. I don't have the prettiest grass, so it's more like a bunch of weeds, and they still grow kind of tall, so I was hoping the Landroid could help with that. Okay, so this is an issue I ran into a lot. The Landroid would run over the boundary wire, cut it, and then I would get this message, wire missing. So the boundary wire is a magnetic line and it needs to be connected to power. That's why we spliced it and put the exposed wire in power and ground. So once the housing is plugged in, the boundary wire is energized. The Landroid can sense that and knows not to pass the boundary wire because the wire is energized. But when the wire is cut by the blades of the Landroid, it is not energized anymore, and the Landroid ends up getting confused, thinks the wire is missing, and shuts off. Final review. Let's do a pros and cons list. So pros, easy setup, minimal tools required besides like a hammer and splicing the wire. You just need to make sure the housing for the Landroid is on a flat surface, and then you need to peg the boundary wire into your yard and charge the Landroid and then let it run. Easy enough. I thought the app was very resourceful, very easy to use, always connected to Wi-Fi, gave me constant updates, so that was fine. However, cons. So as you can see from the video, The blades were very tiny in my opinion. Maybe that's a safety feature, but they were about like potentially 3 inches long, maybe less, maybe more. No, I think less. But they're just very small, and there were 3 of them, so just not a lot of like surface area to cut. And at its lowest height setting, it really didn't cut my grass very well at all. I mean, it's hard to tell from the video, but the patches or like areas that it did run over, it just wasn't cutting anything really. But my biggest issue with the Landroid was the boundary wire itself. Within the first hour, the Landroid ran over the boundary wire 4 times, and you know, every time it runs over the boundary wire, it cuts the wire, and the wire gets de-energized because it's a magnetic line. So basically the Landroid like doesn't know where the boundary is anymore because it is not connected to power. The wire is not connected to power. The Landroid gets confused and just stops. Then you get a notification saying wire missing. So that happened 4 times within the first hour. I was given 3 connectors. I reconnected the wire, tested it more, but the same thing kept happening. I ended up buying more connectors from Walmart so I can test it even further because I reread the reviews, and this is something I didn't show in the video, but I reread the reviews, and one review said that the boundary wire needs to be very flat on the ground. So I went back out and I took more pegs and tried to make the boundary wire as flat as possible, adding more pegs just to retest it. So I did connect the wire, retested it, and unfortunately the same issue occurred. I mean, like I said, I don't really have soil. I have sand in my backyard, so maybe the sand was too soft and the pegs kept coming up. I don't know, but it just didn't work very well. And it's very unfortunate because the wheels worked just fine on the Landroid. It had no problem moving around. It would just cut the boundary wire constantly, and it was just a big issue. I couldn't like leave it alone for even an hour to just let it run. One potential solution that I read could be burying the wire completely. In the instructions, it does mention that the wire will get buried on its own eventually, but I guess I could have potentially buried the wire myself initially. I just didn't really find it worth it because I have a half-acre lot and that would be a lot of digging up to do, and I didn't find it worth it because the blades are so small and really just didn't cut anything for me. But I mean, like I said, it could have been my terrain or the type of grass that I have, which isn't really grass, it's just whatever grows out there grows, and I have like the really soft sand. It's a little bumpy, but in the end I did end up returning it. It just didn't work well for me or my terrain, unfortunately. But final rating, 3 out of 5, because I think it is automated pretty well if it didn't cut the boundary wire, and the app is very user-friendly, easy to use. Maybe if I had a different yard that was flatter with harder soil and different grass, maybe it would have worked just fine for me, but unfortunately for my terrain, like I said, it just didn't work well. Thanks for watching.